cooler than the East River right now is a tube amp with Compactrons. Woo! Break 19 for a temperature check at the Mississippi Marshal in the house. Audio. How about it? How about it? How about it's so cold out we're just going to be a little silly for a minute. And welcome back to the channel. Pat here. Today we actually have an oddball amp, an oddball Peavey. It's not a Fender Bassman 410. Kind of looks like it, right? Looks exactly like it. It's not a Peavey Classic 50. It is a Peavey Vintage. In the early 70s, and this is a 72, in the early 70s, Peavey felt like there was a demand for tweed amps and tweed bassmans. Fender wasn't making anything with tweed. The tweed bassman was way in the past, so they came up with this amp right here. And they used Compactron tubes for the preamp, which we're going to talk about. And they used 4 6L6s to get 100 watts. This is a cool amp. I'm kind of excited to work on it. So let's work on it together, talk about Compactron tubes, and hey, let's bang it out on a cold New York City day. How about it? I'm going to take off the back cover here. And if you don't know, now you know. You know. Compactrons. The client brought this in for blowing fuses, and it's pretty easy to see why. Not only can I measure a dead short on these power tubes, but you can see these two middle ones are actually burnt. This glass is more smoke than firehouse chicken. A little hard to see on camera, but I heard a rumor that disgruntled Fender employees went over from Fender to Peavey, and they were also behind the design of this amp. It's completely plausible because they really had no shame in copying the look of the Bassman. Look under the doghouse. Holy crapola. The early 70s safety standards. This is a trip. So the filter caps are just on this board here, loosey-goosey. This is your insulator. Nothing screwed down. No foam to put positive pressure to hold it down. Ay caramba. Old Peaveys are the truth. I love this amp. So we're going to make this safe. We're going to secure this down a little better. And if you've seen any of my videos, I often talk about changing electrolytic caps, or here, as they say, the vintage filter bank filter caps. We're going to change these caps out. The client wants it reliable, and one of them is starting to bulge here, which means there's not a lot of time left in this cap, and electrolytic caps have a shelf life. So we're going to change all the electrolytic caps. We know that the power tubes are bad. I also see some fraying in this power cable, so we are going to do that work and fire it up, see where we're at. We're going to replace these caps with some F&Ts here. I like to put just a little bit of RTV silicone on the bottom. Helps keep it mechanically secure, otherwise the legs can actually break off from mechanical stress. And I think the client is going to tour with this, so definitely want to make sure that it's solid for the road. Make sure the tip is clean, and we want to do heat, solder, heat. Heat, solder, and heat. You don't want to paint with solder, but sometimes with these bigger old boards, there's a little bit of artistry. We're going to change this power cable. I don't like this exposed green wire telling me this is starting to rot out inside. It could be a fire hazard. We're going to remove the death cap also. Look at this. It's just rotting out. This is so dangerous. I was curious if the dry rot goes all the way back in the cable, and it does. This is kind of nuts. This is a real fire hazard. Look at this. Now we're going to change the caps on this main PCB. I've pulled the board here. I fired it up and it's working, but I definitely heard a filament hum, and the reason is this 100 ohm hum balance pot is bad, so I'm replacing that now here. right, so got it all together. Let's test it. I had a little bit of trouble off camera. I fired it up over at the bench, and the reverb was cutting out. Even though I soldered the board, I had to pull it and solder it again. But we seem to be cooking now. Everything seems to be cool. The tubes are not microphonic, which compactrons, which we're going to talk about, can be often very microphonic. Bias the power tubes up with that trim pot that we cleaned. And let's dial in the sound. Let's see how this reverbs. There really is a lot of different types of vacuum tubes out there, and only a small handful do we actually see in guitar amps. There are some tubes that have just been lost in history. You don't really see too often that are used in radios and television, computers, and even rockets. The most common preamp tube you're going to see in a guitar amp is a 12AX7. Well, what is that? Well, it's a dual triode. A triode has three elements: a grid, a plate, and a cathode. Check out this 30s triode. This is really a power tube. It's not really a preamp tube, but this is a Taylor T20. They call it a T20 because it has a plate dissipation of 20 watts. But we have a filament, and then we have a triode, a plate, a grid, and a cathode. Here's an early radio triode, an Arcturus tube made in Newark, New Jersey. But in guitar amps, the oldest preamp tubes you're really going to run into are octal tubes. I just worked on a 50s Rickenbacker that this tube came out of. This is a 6SC7, and this is a dual triode. Well, we know we have single triodes, and we know we have dual triodes like our 12AX7s and our 12AT7s. And yes, compactrons are triple triodes. 3 triodes in one glass envelope. They share a heater, so there's one heater, but we have 3 triodes. Why would we want to do that? Well, to make things smaller, to make things cheaper. The 6C10 compactron, which is the compactron used in the Peavey we just serviced, is similar to a 12AX7. It has the gain structure very similar to a 12AX7. So it's like having 1.5 12AX7s in one glass envelope. You know, in the early 60s, they were competing with transistors and solid state components. Things were getting smaller, more complex. People wanted things portable. And color television's very, very complicated. So compactrons became really very popular in televisions and other applications, not so much in audio. However, Ampeg was pretty quick to use them in the V4s, V4B, and then Fender actually used them in some of the Rivera era amps. And yeah, here in this Peavey used them. You can really kind of save some space, and they work really well. I kind of said something incorrect that they can often be microphonic. That's not quite true. They're actually very reliable tubes, compactrons. I have just found sometimes with compactrons, if one is bad, it does take a little bit of time for the problem to show. So I said in the video that they're prone to microphonic issues. That's not true. It's just if you're going to have an amp with the compactrons or you're servicing one, just give it proper warm-up time to check. So another advantage to compactrons isn't just size. It's going to be less heater current all around. Like the Peavey we service, you know, we can put in 3 12AX7s if we're designing it, or we can go with 2 compactrons. Less filaments, less heater current. That's a plus. And also to get 3 triodes in one glass tube, you're going to have to add some pins, right? So you can't do it in 8 pins like an octal socket or 9 pins like a 12AX7. So compactrons have 12 pins, and they go obviously into 12-pin sockets, right? 3, 6, 9 for triodes, and 2 more for the filament. So that means 11. So what's the 12th? Well, there's actually some compactrons out there that actually have a pentode. So you can have a triode, and a pentode. Don't see that I know of in a guitar amp, but you're certainly going to see it for all you tinkering around with color television. So I know there's a lot of you out there. I wish. All right, guys, this brings us to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Real quick, don't need to make a comment about the hum balance pot. I know you can put in fixed resistors, but this amp likes to be offset a little bit. So to null the hum, I put in a hum balance pot. So no comments. You can keep it to I Saw a Guitar, Andre the Giant, all that shit. Who has time? All right, so I'm going to be in Los Angeles for the amp build workshop. And we're also working on right now, very excited to be going to Chicago soon. So look for that. And then I'm also working on going far out into the Altoona, Pennsylvania area to interview someone very special, a 99-year-old man, wonderful person, wonderful human being who worked on radios, worked for a company called Hudson Marine. So built radios. So we're going to try to go out there soon and interview him. Got to keep this history going. It's so important. And, you know, with where things are going in this world with digital and AI, you know, let's keep things analog. Knock on wood. Peace.